would not be possible without the hard work of our staff and those who have been with us for a long time. Many of you know that Sarah Koski joined the organization this year, and I'll tell you, she is not only a talent, but a great blessing. Without her work on this dinner, we wouldn't all be here tonight, so let's give her a good hand. And lastly, certainly not least, you all know her well. Shannon McGinley has been a massive part not only of this dinner, but of training myself and those who have been before me. As I know you guys have seen, Kevin Smith is in the room tonight, former executive director. Kevin can attest that as well. So thank you, Shannon, for all your work on this dinner. Now, what a year we have had, and thank God the winter's over. I'm sure that Representative Cordelli is still thawing up in Tufton Borough, and many of those who are from further north than that. And we thank you for making your way down here. But I think it's interesting that we live in a state where our weather resembles our political landscape so closely. It's funny how we have such warm spells as our majority that we gained in both the House of Representatives and the Senate in the fall. And it's interesting to me that just as our hallowed falls are followed by the icy blasts of our winter, which we have all endured, we're able to come and see this spring when Maggie Hassan recently vetoed a bill, SB 1, that's in support of families making the best decisions for their children's education. So in the same way that our weather undulates, we have the same type of movement in our weather patterns. That provides a real interesting opportunity for us as we operate inside the political landscape. We know that our opinion is not very popular, but it is the most important. We know that when the weather undulates, there's one thing that continually remains. Not only is that Cornerstone, but it's what we represent. Those three pillars that are ever so important to our society, to our state, and to our nation. And that is family, faith, and freedom. And I want to say to you today that it is more important than ever that we focus on the first two. Now here in the Granite State, we love our freedom. And anyone who wants to attest that has never been to a Gun Owners of New Hampshire meeting, go ahead and try and take their freedom away from you. You may not walk out of that place. But that being the case, I can assure you, with what's going on nationally as well as locally, that if we do not strengthen the family and our faith, we very well may lose our freedoms. I don't know if any of you saw this, but a church out in Swansea, New Hampshire, just had the privilege of having the town council meeting removed from their church. There's a national group who came in and waylaid them with a ton of propaganda, forced them fearfully to exclude the town council meetings. Now, many of you may not know this, but in the inception of our nation, our elections were put on the first Tuesday of November. And that was so that pastors had the opportunity to speak to their congregations and give them the opinions that they deem necessary to make the right choices on the first Sunday of the month. And here we are today in 2015, where town council meetings can no longer be held in our churches. There's something gravely wrong there. Many of you have heard this narrative throughout time, not only in our state, but also in our nation. You can't say certain names in our schools. You can't have prayer meetings in certain establishments. This is quite counter to what the inception of our nation was built upon. And I'll tell you, we can see it, and also not only the policies, but the processes we're watching happen today. Grave disrest, massive disorientation and disorder. We wonder where it comes from. It's because we strayed from our foundation. I'm going to give you guys a couple of quotes. Bear with me here as I recall them to mind. They're from a few individuals who made their life's work out of dismantling our great nation. 1, the only thing I believe in is the human will. Another one, the only solution is death. No man, there is no problem. This one particularly pertinent, as a few years have gone past. It is not the voters that elect those who represent them. It is the people counting the votes. Those 3 quotes came from Joseph Stalin. Next 2. Destroy the family, and you destroy the country. And lastly, If you say a lie enough, it becomes truth. And that was Vladimir Lenin. We live in a time where these statements can be followed all the way back to our leadership. Now, that's pretty bleak. But fortunately, one of our great founding fathers saw this coming. He knew that if we did not attribute our rights to a higher power, that we were giving executive authority to mankind. And today, we can see where that has gotten us. We can see that we have the second highest insurance premiums in the nation here in New Hampshire. We can see that we have a gas tax now, taking money out of people's pockets. We can see the overreach into our school systems, telling parents how they should be teaching their kids, versus parents choosing for their children. We have a narrative that says that any type of moral obligation in terms of marriage is wrong. I tell you now, if we do not reinvigorate our foundation, our nation and our state is in trouble. And I want to tell you tonight, that is the ministry of Cornerstone. That is our goal, that is our aim. We hope to reinvigorate those two great pillars, the family and our faith. And yes, you know that we work in the legislature. I'm sure many of you get our emails. A few of you read them. But the truth is, we are called to be much, much greater than that. And I'll tell you, that is where we intend to take Cornerstone. We want to help build a movement. A movement that as it grows becomes winsome, credible, powerful, and heard. That can only happen through unity and through working together. As we are one spoke on the wheel and we hold the standard in Concord, there are many others working alongside us there and outside of Concord that are vital parts of what we're doing. Now, as we move forward into this star-studded primary that we're all excited about, it's vital that we use as many resources as possible to invigorate those who are coming from the churches. Let me give you some numbers on the state of New Hampshire. There are roughly 450,000 people who identify as believers here. About 280,000 of them vote. 180,000 of them vote and oppose to conservative principles. 100,000 of them vote with us. That gives you a sizable number that are not being reached. Now, as Cornerstone moves forward, one of our main initiatives is to work with churches, with pastors, to become a part of the community, to reach out and help them register the voters in their church. And I'll tell you, as we build that relationship, we will continue to see a rise in the votes for those that we trust most in power, at a national level and a state level. Now, not only is that the case, but we also are working to integrate in the community in a way that emboldening pastors, knowing what they can preach, knowing the freedom that they have. Another number for you all. You know that the United States was polled and 85% of them believe that the words separation of church and state were in our Constitution. They're nowhere to be found in our Constitution. The media has done a fantastic job of separating us, of alienating us. And it's time that we come together. It's time that we realize that the separation of church and state was built to protect the church. The separation of church and state knew the value of the faith community and the power that it held in a nation. We live in a time where families no longer grow in community that they used to. It's time to return to it. And where does that happen? That happens in every single one of your living rooms, and your children's living rooms, and your grandchildren's living rooms. It is guided by the rudder of the church, the body of Christ, Big B. Learn that in philosophy, different terms. The Big B body of Christ, as it guides the family, and that comes to fruition, we never have to worry about who they're voting for. We never have to worry about what's going on in that voting booth because we know that they have their ear tuned to to the true lawmaker. We know that they have their ear tuned to the one true King. And as they make their decisions filtered through that, we have nothing to worry about. So those are the two things I can assure you Cornerstone will be doing as we move forward. We're still going to be a voice in Concord. We're still going to work in the legislature. We're still going to continue to work with groups like New Hampshire Right to Life, who is represented here this evening. We're going to work with groups like 1269 on Hanover Street, Henry Demers. We're going to work with groups like Operation Blessing out in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, who started simply by offering Christian care to elderly people after school, and is now grown into an organization that provides food, that provides appliances, cars, shelter, and clothing. The town itself has sold them the rec center for $1, has subsidized their programming for $30,000 a year, and now they have 75 children who are hearing a Christian message every single day because the public is hungry. The void that has been caused by separating from the family and faith is desperate. They're screaming for the answer. They want to know where it is. We have that answer. We've had it all along. And it's time that we integrate ourselves in a way that brings that into fruition. Now, each and every one of you can do that. Each and every one of you can partner not only with Cornerstone, but the many different organizations in our state that are operating in ways to make a difference. And we are just one spoke on the wheel. An important spoke, but just one. And so we thank each and every one of you for being a part of that. Now, I want to talk about the movement a little bit more. As Cornerstone operates as one voice, we're strong. But as we develop our movement, we become more than one. And as we rise and as we grow in credibility, influence, and power, it is not just ourselves that are speaking. That affects change. And not just change that turns over like a legislature line, but change that is lasting, hearts and minds that have come to know the truth. That is what we are after. And that is what we will continue to promise. Now, got a couple of exciting moments from here. I promised myself that if ever I was given a platform, that I would use it to do something I've always wanted to do. I want to take an opportunity here to honor a few people in the same way that we have honored the family as an organization. I've had the pleasure of growing up in New Hampshire. It's a beautiful state. And my family still resides here. In fact, my parents are right here in this room. And I want to take a moment to thank you, Mom and Dad. You've made me who I am today. You've made my sisters who they are. You've rooted me in the Word, and you've showed me how to guide my path. You've truly taken that charge seriously to direct a child in the way that they should go. You've been an example for myself, and the many around us, just as many more in this room are. So, if each of you would join me, I'd like to give my parents a hand. Wayne and Mary McCormick, would you guys stand up? My dad wasn't going to come tonight, and I told him that if he didn't, he was going to ruin my speech. So, and that's just it. That right there. It's about the family. It really is. And if we continue to build that in our state, we will continue to see change that lasts. And I know that many of you can resonate with that story. There's many of you here that I know personally. Wendy Warlichek and Scott Moody, bringing another young one into the world with their army of children they already have. Renee Turner and her husband, who are a professor and an entrepreneur, whose daughter is shaking the ground up at St. Anselm College. Let me just tell you that. This is how we change our state. It starts in that community. Now, onto one of my other favorite parts of our program. There's one more individual amongst us who has truly exemplified stewardship of the family. They have been a stalwart champion of life, and they have stood tirelessly, and I mean tirelessly. This woman never, ever gets tired. I don't know how she does it. She has championed marriage. She has stood for religious freedom and has been a confidant, not only in her faith, but for those of other faiths across the state and across the nation. I am always surprised by who her recent conversation was with, whether it be presidential candidate, current sitting senator, head of some national organization. But it's because they have seen her walk in truth and light. Well, for longer than 15 years, but she's exemplified it here in the state for 15 years. Shannon McGinley has been a true steward of the family. Whether it be, Shannon doesn't know this is going to happen yet, whether it be under the title of mother, wife, lobbyist, activist, prayer warrior, or confidant. She has been a true example of the Lord's charge for those that He's called to action. So, this year, on our 15th anniversary, we would be honored if Shannon, you would receive our Steward of the Family Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Shannon McGinley. Anyone who knows Shannon knows how hard it was to achieve that moment because she knows everything. In fact, when I told her husband about it, he said, "Good luck." And so did her friends. So that's a monumental feat there. Sometimes, well, it's actually interesting. We thought she knew, but her omniscience only goes so far. So, we have a great program coming up for each and every one of you. I want you to take those words, that message that I just shared with you, to heart. I know Rick will speak to that as he gets up here. It really, our mission for Cornerstone goes beyond what we do in the State House. We really seek to work with each and every one of you, with each and every organization that we can. And many of you who are part of those organizations know that that is our heart and know that we're working towards that. And as we continue to do that, it may take time, and we will grow, we will build, and we will add to our team. And that's the last bit I want to leave you with. As we continue to move forward, we have to have excellent people to exercise the tools that we're developing. People like Sarah Koski, who has come in and taken the Concord State House by storm. There are certain positions that we need to help fill, and each and every one of you can partner with us today to do that. And whether it be by referring or financially contributing, which I'm not going to ask you for anything, that comes later in the program. But, for instance, we need a communications director. We need someone who can help us maximize every situation that we have to address the media and push our message forward. We need a volunteer coordinator to maximize this wonderful blessing of a primary that we have, to use the human capital that we have in the state to do the work necessary to win. And lastly, we need an office manager to help us with our donor contact and outreach, to manage everything proficiently and professionally. Each of you tonight has heard what we are doing and where we are going. And we hope that you partner with us as time goes forward to achieve those goals and to bring those people into the places necessary to build our movement. So, thank you each and every one of you for coming tonight. This is a true blessing. This has been a long time coming, the re-annualization of our dinner. But I'm going to hand it over to Shannon McGinley. She is going to introduce, she's going to share a few words as their award recipient, and then also is going to introduce our keynote speaker. So thank you all very, very much.